Okay. All right. No, I'll take that. I'll take that because we'll watch how it goes. But to this question about, I guess, the third best quarterback in the SEC, because it also underscores what I don't think we talk about enough about.
It's got to be Corral, right? Like
you would think so.
And I know, like, we made the joke on Saturday, and I said, and people loved it, that Barry Odom broke Matt Corral. I just said that joke because it was funny at the time. He threw 6 picks, blah, 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 blah. But to me, it's Jones, it's Trask, and you could have the inverse 1A, 1B, whichever, and then it's Corral. And, I mean, Corral is, like, he's put up numbers against pretty much everyone except Arkansas, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it has to be he's the pretty clear consensus answer when you're thinking about the third best quarterback in the SEC, I think.
And I guess that's one way in which I measure conferences is I care about what your depth is. I don't care about what your heights are, because if I cared about what your heights are, Oklahoma would be in every single conversation ever. And that ain't the case, right? Because Kansas exists. Vanderbilt is, it's Vanderbilt. But I also I do game night for ESPN Radio on the weekends, and this last week I did it with Brad Edwards, and it's really fun because I get to talk with him about some streaks and some stats because that's where he lives and breathes in relation to college football, and he gave me a stat that floored me. So Alabama beats the hell out of Tennessee. They've never lost to Tennessee in the Saban era, which means they've won 14 straight times. Edwards told me it is the first time in SEC history, dating back to the 30s, that one team has beaten another team 14 consecutive times by 14 points or more, which is another way of saying nobody's ever done that to Vanderbilt, right? That's the point I'm making about the bottom of the barrel here. So Alabama likes nothing more than stopping a mud hole and walking dry Tennessee football, which is its own sort of joke. But when we talk about who's good and who's not, and the depth in this league, I look at how good or bad is Vanderbilt, right? And then a couple years ago, Keyshawn Vaughn runs all over Baylor. So there's no argument about what the best league is, but when we're talking about quarterbacks, and you get to Matt Corral, the third best quarterback in any conversation about the Big 12 is Sam Ehlinger, right? Just by default. After that, you're having to really jockey with positions. You're having to match guys up in ways I don't think you like to. But what Matt Corral has been able to do in Lane Kiffin just in this year also ought to work as an indictment on, your mans that was running them last year in Matt Luke. Because I'm thinking, you didn't know whether it was John Rice Plumlee or Matt Corral, when clearly it's been Matt Corral the whole time. And then I look around at the rest of the SEC West, and I watched a big portion of LSU South Carolina because I'm a huge TJ Finley fan. And I think he gives them a first-round pick here and there in the next 3 years because he's that good. I think he's a better product than Miles Brennan was coming out of high school, which is saying a lot because Miles set a state record for passing yards. But I think the depth in that conference at each position, when we look at the guys at number 2 on the depth chart, I feel good about almost everybody not named Vanderbilt, which is not something I get to say about pretty much anywhere other than the SEC. Now, knowing all of that, knowing what Sam Pittman has done here recently, and knowing how you guys feel about what you've recruited and how you've developed, what's the ceiling for Arkansas in the first 3 years of Sam Pittman?
Man, I hope it's high. So you talk about quarterbacks. Quarterbacks is always going to be the position group that takes you over the top. And when you have a guy that Kendall Briles, and I don't know how long he's going to be in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I hope it's a long time. I know they've struggled a little bit on offense this year, but that is a byproduct of the offensive line not being big enough. Kendall's still adjusting to the SEC. Bryce Petty and company in 2015 had the number 1 scoring offense in Baylor, and I believe that was Kendall's first year as taking over as the offensive coordinator. We know about the lineage of his father, Art. He's got deep Texas high school football ties. There's a lot of that football acumen in his brain. We talked to Seth Russell about what it's like to play. He's also a former Baylor quarterback.
Right.
What it's like to play under Kendall, and he said nothing but glowing things. He said he sets you up to win a Heisman, and you're going to have that opportunity at Arkansas if they can get in some offensive linemen, if they can continue to recruit skill players like they've had to this point. I'm excited to see what Jaquaylin Crawford can do, the transfer from Oklahoma. I'm excited to see what Keytron Jackson a guy out of Roy City, Texas, can be in this offense, and just that they can get the offensive line, because I think Malik Hornsby and KJ Jefferson, we just talked about that argument, who's going to start there. One of them's going to put up big numbers in this system. So as long as, and the other question is, flipping the other side of the football, how long can you keep Barry Odom?
Oh, yeah. No, that's a good question.
COVID has thrown a huge wrench in athletic department's budget, while some would be, oh, we just got to buy this coach out. Let's hire someone else. That's not necessarily happening now because of the loss of revenue and just everything going on in the world. So I think, honestly, and this is just, again, my opinion, I think Barry Odom is at least going to stay one more year as the DC. Probably going to get a raise, well-deserved, at least after 4 games. We'll see what happens the rest of the year. But after year number 2, that's when you should be worried about losing him. And the other guys on the staff, Sam Carter, former All-Big 12 TCU cornerback, absolute stud. Ryan Rhodes was coaching where Sam Pittman coached at Hutchinson Community College. Unbelievable with Bumper Pool and the linebackers, Grant Morgan. They've been incredible. Then you look on the defensive line, Jonathan Marshall, he's huge for Sam Pittman. Dabo Swinney has been able to keep that Clemson core together, but more particularly Brent Venables. I would be shocked to see Venables leave Dabo, and if he does, that's going to kind of change the dynamic of Clemson. But people want to coach for Sam Pittman. People want to play for Sam Pittman. One of the reasons, RJ, that Arkansas really started to trend upward and then immediately take a nosedive under Brett Bielema is because they lost guys like a Sam Pittman. They lost guys like a Randy Shannon. They lost some really good assistant coaches, and they brought in like Paul Rhodes and Kurt Anderson and guys that just couldn't handle the SEC. Can Sam Pittman, when these guys eventually leave to take better coaching opportunities or higher opportunities or coordinator jobs,
for Arkansas football? Look here, man. Like, I talk a bunch about Arkansas, and I appreciate and am humbled by having Ty listen to anything I got to say. But if you need to know about Arkansas Razorbacks football, listen to the Morning Rush weekdays, 6 to 9 a.m. He's also got Fantasy Football Sundays from 10 to 11 a.m. He's the program director at ESPN Arkansas, and this dude first acknowledged me, and I'm going, dude, I got to listen to you now because we're out here just chopping it up about Arkansas football in a way that, quite frankly, I haven't been able to chop it up about Arkansas football in some time, even as this claims to be an Arkansas football hotbed. We will see how that goes as they get better. But man, this has been so much fun. I got such good feedback immediately from this. I hope you do too. Follow Ty on Twitter at Ty Sports Radio. That's TYE Sports Radio on the Twitters. And tremendous follow, tremendous for the Arkansas football content. I hope as the Razorbacks continue to do well, that people continue to just come to hear what you got to say, because I'm always informed and I'm always entertained. Ty, dude, thanks so much.
Absolutely, man. Let's close on this. One, if you're listening to the RJ Young Show right now, if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that, because I listen, like he says, weekly. Dude's got great stuff, not only his Arkansas takes, but so much more. And second, RJ, I am so bummed that we're not going to get to see the Razorbacks take on the Sooners in basketball this year. So we are going to have to meet another time, either in Tulsa, either in Northwest Arkansas. Go eat and chop it up, because we're not, unfortunately, going to get to do it this year. Hey, but we're gonna meet eventually, and we're gonna enjoy some either Eskimo Joe's cheese fries or some hot spot in Norman or Chalk in OKC. I'm down to go grub with you, man. Have a few cold ones.
Right on, brother. We will make it happen. To the rest of you, we will say I'll see ya in a couple hours. Deuces.